Saint Agnes's Eve, ah, bitter chill it was. The owl, for all its feathers, was cold. Begins Keats's The Eve of Saint Agnes, which is a poem, a quite long poem that was published in 1820 and written in 1819. So, if we go by the publication date, today 2020, this year, I mean, so 200 years back, but it's so powerful. Even now, if you get into it, you will get all kinds of feelings which will evoke the imagery, the incident that is described in the poem very vividly before your mind's eyes, as we say. Keats is in fact very famous for his use of very sensuous imagery and all kinds of senses, auditory, tactile, even the line you see, ah, bitter chill it was. So giving you the feeling that there is cold all around. Anyway, it's cold because the time is January. 20th January is Saint Agnes's Eve. It falls on the evening of 20th January. This commemorates the sacrifice and sainthood of Christian saint Agnes, who was tortured, perpetrated, harassed by the pagan powers in the 4th century AD. Anyway, there was a belief among people that on that day, if a woman keeps fast and then goes to bed unclad, without clothes, virgin woman that is, and keeps her hands under her pillow like this and sleeps like that, she can get a vision of her lover in dream. Now, with this, Keats added his own versions of a story. It is partly influenced by Coleridge, but most of all by, in a way, Shakespeare, Romeo Juliet. I referred to Romeo Juliet story in some other video. However, it doesn't end in tragedy as such. This one. Now, two fighting families, just as in Romeo and Juliet. Anyway, before that, the most important topic related to this is medievalism. Now, why medievalism? Now, Romanticism is not only a return to nature, that will be an inadequate and incomplete description of romanticism, but the English romantic movement as we have it was a return to the past by all means. Look at Coleridge's Rime of the Ancient Mariner. This is also basically a return to the medieval past. Why so? One of the reasons is that Romanticism is also a reaction to the excessive rationalism brought in by Enlightenment, on which I have other videos and I have spoken to you. Enlightenment put excessive emphasis on our rational faculty, but after all, man or the human being is a rational animal. The rational part is there, but the animal or the emotional part is also there. That had to be balanced. So romanticism came also as a reaction to enlightenment. Now, going to the world of non-rationality is not so much possible in present times as it is in past times. I won't say in present times it is impossible, but if you write something supernatural and all, it is always better if you have a setting in the past, because those days things were more believable, this kind of things. So, ghosts, fairies, elves. So all the romantics, in some way or rather most romantics, Wordsworth is slightly an exception, but he had found its supernaturalism in nature. Rather, romantics, they mostly visited past very often, and that was, in a way, the Gothic past. Very Gothic kind of structure, feeling, horror, etc. All these were there in their poems. The same we encounter in Keats's Eve of Saint Agnes. There is a huge castle in which all the people are making a lot of fun, you know, enjoyment, drinking, etc. And then in the castle lived one called Madeline, a lady who pines for, a virgin lady, pines for her love of Porphyro. Now, who belongs to her enemy clan. So, two families fighting with each other, royal families, but their children, their descendants are in love with each other. So, on the eve of Saint Agnes, that night in that building, suddenly that castle, the hero, this is a common theme with heroes even in our Hindi movies, sort of very popular commercial movies, hero, heroine, and then an obstacle, a staunch father is there, our authoritative figure, father like figure, who doesn't want the girl to join the boy. Earlier, such kind of roles were played mostly by figures like Amresh Puri, and the hero very strongly comes and then tears all obstacles and takes the girl and goes away. If the hero is slightly comic, then it's done on a comical note. But anyway, this what I wanted to suggest is that this is a common theme. If you read Vladimir Prop's The Morphology of Folktale, this will be clear to you that this pattern is very common all over the world. Is in our fairy tales also these are there. So Hindi cinema or commercial cinema basically are giving us fairy tales in new packaging, most of them, not the realist movies. Now, so he goes there and then somehow he enters, the hero Porphyro, to that building, enemy's castle. So he enters not openly, covertly, and then takes help of a maid called Angela, who somehow gets convinced, but then she is also afraid. Her fate was also not good towards the end. Anyway, so she helps this Porphyro enter Madeline's chamber. There, Madeline, goes to bed, doing all the rituals, and she is sleeping. In the sleep, she has a dream of Porphyro, and when she wakes up, he finds the person next to him. She feels that it is a continuation of her dream. How romantic if you find your dream man next to you. It happens only, mostly in Hindi movies. You are dreaming of that man, and when you wake up, you find the man next to you. So Keats made it possible through imagination. That is the power of imagination. Anyway, but then gradually she understands, or rather, Porphyro makes her understand that this is not dream, this is true. And she says, okay, he has to leave since this is enemy's castle and all that. But she says, if he leaves, she cannot leave. She will be like a wounded dove. Now a lover cannot leave her beloved like this. So they escape, run away. And all people get drunk, they're sleeping and this kind of thing. So they may just make their way past all those people, and before any trouble could touch them, they have gone long, far away. So those days maybe GPS, mobile, smartphones, etc. were not there, so tracking was also difficult. Of course, running away was also difficult. Cars and all are not there, horses, chariots, these things. So in short, this is the story. So you must have understood that this is not contemporary, not only today, but it's not a contemporary setting even in Keats' time. The setting is medieval. Royal people keeping feast, then maids, then coming, huge castle, revelry, all these things. And then towards the end of the poem, Keats comments that this is long gone. This is not the thing of today. So that is why romanticism, I come back to the original point, is also an escape to the past in an attempt to escape the rationalities of the present. In a way, the same can be said of most of the commercial Hindi films. Most people who view them. That is why art films in India was not very successful. Uh, were not very successful because commercial films, most people who watch them, they're already burdened by their day-to-day sufferings, so they get a relief from those sufferings when they watch the commercial films, where a coolie number one can do, I'm sorry, the word does not have, it's not quite proper, but then it is there in the film, can become a hero, that kind of thing. That is not possible in real life. So wish fulfillment, the same technique the romantics applied. It is in fact sometimes said that a romantic cannot belong to the present moment, and this is possibly right. You must have been watching so many videos about motivation, how to ease your anxiety, this and that, by which many people are making a lot of money also. One core advice that they give is live in the present, live in the present, like sniping the show. Don't live in the past, don't live in future. Krishnamurti, the famous philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti, also said that. But it's, even for us it is impossible, because we mostly think about what has gone by or what will come, and for the romantic it is perfectly impossible, because a romantic either lives in the past or in the future. That is why they are different, because if everyone lives in the present, then present will become dull. It is only marketing, eating, making our, earning our livelihood, this and that, checking daily bank balance. So no romance in life, no mystery in life, and mystery is also an important word. So this is about the medieval setting of the Eve of Saint Agnes. And one an important point, of course, I've told it without mentioning, this is a love story, proper love story, which is important, because in India, whenever we say romantic, what common people understands is that it is about love. They don't understand that romanticism is return to nature or return to past, this and that. So romance, all they understand is love. So this is a lecture on romance. Romance का भी एक lecture होना चाहिए. We had songs in our days, but anyway, so this is romantic in the very Indian sense. In fact, I have heard people use the romantic, the word romantic in India pejoratively. I mean pejoratively. That person is very romantic. But means it is a vice, something like that. So at least in this poem, this romantic poem, if not so much in the other poems in our course, in this poem, romanticism carries this very Indian sense of love also. So you read, and then setting is the most important thing and imagery in the poem, and you do further excavations. So this poem is not only about love, but it's not a tragedy like Romeo and Juliet. It is about the success of love. Amor vincit omnia, as was written on the brooch that the prioress of Chaucer used to carry, where that is amor vincit omnia, love conquers all. So in certain way, this poem is also about love conquering all. So thank you so much. A link is given below about Saint Agnes. You will know more about her. It is important. And though the poem does not have much of its Christian underpinnings, it is very secularized, but then a religious setting is also invoked by the first reference being to the beadsmen. Beadsmen are those people who count beads, like we have mala in Hinduism or tasbih in Islam, so we count. And there were professional beadsmen also in Europe, so who pray for others' behalf. The same prayer they repeat, like Ave Maria, that kind of thing. So initially some religious setting is there, but finally the poem is about secular love, not so much religious love. So Keats is very interesting. I mean, 200 years uh, have passed since the poem was written, but still I find it very interesting, and I'm sure you will also find it interesting. Let my lecture not replace Keats. Read the poem. Thank you.